Well, people around the world viewed the video of a police officer choking Eric Garner to death. Everyone has an opinion of what they see. For many, a police officer uses excessive force on a man who's frustrated but non-combative. Patrick Lynch, president of the New York City Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, has a different take.
While bringing that person to the ground, yes, they said, "We can't breathe." But the police officers and the EMS did what they're supposed to do at that time. If you're speaking, you can breathe. Unfortunately, he died for a number of reasons, and as the grand jury saw and the medical examiner said, it was not a chokehold that killed that person. So we feel badly that there was a loss of life. But unfortunately, Mr. Gardner made a choice that day to resist arrest.
For an analysis of the video, we turn to Corey Pegues. He is a retired New York City Police Department deputy inspector, and he retired a couple of years ago, and he's joining us here in our New York studio. Welcome to Arise America, Corey.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Gosh, so much to talk about. I don't really even know where to start, but let's start with this. In your experience, you were on the police force for more than 20 years.
Yes.
In your experience, what culture, what influences within the New York City Police Department did you see and experience that would have encouraged or fostered the kind of altercation that we saw between Daniel Pantaleo and Eric Garner?
Well, if you don't mind, let me just make a quick comment about what the PBA president said.
Sure.
I mean, these are very inflammatory remarks. To first say that it was a chokehold, to second say if you could breathe, then you can talk. If you could talk, then you're breathing. Well, you know what? When I'm shot and I die, you know, if you get shot, you die. These are very inflammatory remarks. So I want to put that right on the record. Now, the culture in the NYPD, when you see things like this happen, I've seen it for 20 years. I was commanding officer, one of the most violent precincts in the city of New York. Everything comes down to leadership. It's just like the director of this TV station. They're not going to just let you do what you want to do. Everything boils down to leadership. And when you had two sergeants on the scene of that, what people are not talking about. You had a female black sergeant. In her defense, she was a rookie sergeant, but I didn't tell her to take the test. The day you're the boss, you got to act like the boss. And then you had I believe he was an East Indian sergeant on the scene. So I'm taking race out of it. I'll leave that up to the public to figure out, because all of these young black men are dying. They'll figure out the race thing. I'm just going to give you facts. You had two sergeants on the scene. Neither one of them intervened. They actually was on top of the pile while the guys was on top of them. You see the female black there without doing anything. So that's where I'm looking at the leadership. Where's the leadership in this?
Well, you raise a very interesting point there, because I was actually going to ask you, of course, there were at least 4, some have said 5 officers on the scene. We see 4 in that video. So there were 3 other officers that were there working with Pantaleo. Why didn't any one of them at any point speak up and say, you know, maybe we should back off, maybe we should let up, maybe we should ease up just a little bit?
Well, you know what? Because the culture is so intimidating. Cops don't want to tell other cops what to do, because now you're the outcast. And I mean, this is a clear indication of it. You had a supervisor there that was afraid to say something. Here you got a black female supervisor working on Staten Island, which is probably, I don't know the numbers, I can guarantee it's over 80% white cops there. So here she's thrust into this situation. She's supervising a bunch of white cops in her precinct. She's probably intimidated to say something, which is a travesty of justice. When my son died, I do not want to hear that it's a mistake. And I want to be clear, I defend cops. I have a daughter that's a cop right now in the city of New York. I love cops, but I hate bad cops. And this was a bad situation.
Very bad situation. Mayor Bill de Blasio announced today that he wants to start a significant retraining, or thinks that a significant retraining of the nation's law enforcement officers should begin. Is this an issue of improper training or not following training?
Now, I've been talking about this for months on TV, on radio. I don't want to hear anything about training from these guys. They got training. This is the biggest and the baddest police department in the world. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars in training. The issue we have is what you saw in the video, conflict resolution. They don't know how to talk to people. The moment he said, not today, y'all was messing with me last week, not today, some bulb should have went off and somebody had back down. This guy's not going to go. Let's sit back, call a supervisor, do a tactical takedown. That's what they need to do. But they get this training. You know what cops think when they go to training? I was a cop for 20 years. Every time you got training, you go, oh, that's a day I don't have to go on the street. They don't need training. What we need to do is rein in these disrespectful officers that's on the street. And the way you do it is start hitting them in the pocket, start suspending them, start arresting them, start taking money out of their pocket, giving them undesirable assignments. Then you get your message across. Training, we get training. I'm tired. We need to diversify these police departments and start enforcing the rules we have. An illegal chokehold that's prohibited. The only thing that happened to the cop was you took him off the street and put him on the desk. But if a cop cursed out a sergeant, you suspend him for 30 days.
Very interesting point. I want to go back to this issue of race. In your very first answer, you said you want to take race off the table and talked about the issue of leadership. But let's talk about race. Do you see a racial component here in your experience in the NYPD? How pervasive was there an atmosphere of bias based on race?
Well, I can tell you, I've worked in about 8 or 9 precincts in the city of New York. So you have the cops that don't live in this city. They say, well, I don't work in this place. This place is a rag. This is the language that they talk. They're coming into the precinct already talking about the community when they haven't even stepped foot out of there. They already have predetermined notions on what the people in the community are. So I've seen racism. When you look at the NYPD, the minority is the majority now. There's more minorities in the NYPD than ever before. And they actually tipped the scale at like 51, 52%. But guess who runs the police department? 70 to probably about 78% male white. So the pendulum swings. Down on the bottom, it's a bunch of minorities, but at the top, it's these other people, and I don't know if they're sensitive to our communities.
You know, you said to our producers, we were preparing for this conversation, that perhaps law enforcement officers should live in the community in which they work. Why is that important?
Well, not necessarily live in the communities, but it's just like when your producer was talking earlier. I said, if you put me in Chinatown, I don't know the community. You have to train me about the community before I go there. It's like the 2 Asian cops a few weeks ago walking in a housing development in Brooklyn, and they shot the guy because they was definitely afraid. Did they know the buildings? A light out in the housing development is something that's normal every day.
This is a big conversation that deserves more than 5 minutes, but we thank you for the 5 minutes you gave us. Corey Pegues, we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you.
Appreciate it.
And this is Arise America.